Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Campbell, and welcome once again to Chicagoing. I've got a guest today who's been on the show many times before, but today it's just really special. You know, March is getting right around the corner. We're going to start looking at spring coming, and I thought to talk about her new book. It's called The Answer is Simple. Love yourself, live your spirit. Her name is Sonia Choquette. And Sonia, it's so good to have you back on the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Bill.
I mean,
Thank you.
a New York Times best-selling author.
I got there.
Yeah, I mean, and you have been writing truth and sharing things with people for so many years about finding their inner wisdom, of connecting with spirit, of really, really, really living a life that can be a lot less complicated than everything outside is telling us that it is.
I think it's really important, especially now, because we're inundated with so much anxiety and change in society that people can get.
War.
Yeah, it's all uncertain, and people are fearful, and there is an alternative to that.
Yeah.
And that's what this book is about, is how to have an alternative experience in the one that everybody's being bombarded with, and that is a simple, joyful, peaceful experience where your spirit and your joy can be the leader of your life and can solve the problems for you, because that's the human spirit does that.
And you know, one of the things that it's so interesting just to observe what is going on around us. We can get so connected to that way of being, that belief that, oh, it's all doom and gloom, nothing is positive, and let that direct our lives. What you're sharing with us here are practical ways that people can kind of unlock that wisdom inside of themselves.
Well, I think the energy that we're being inundated with is sort of like an infection. It's like a virus.
Viral infection.
It just kind of proliferates and creates anxiety and fear and despair, and the answer is simple, is very practical and very grounded daily practices that will change that frequency, that vibration, that perspective, put you back in your heart, put you back in your creativity, which is where you have choice and where you can actually manifest for yourself something different. And that's what I think we are all being invited to do right now, is to choose and live and model for the world something different, something better.
Well, you know, it's so interesting, Sonia. You have published so many best-selling books. You are published by Hay House, which has every, you know, wisdom leader that's publishing. It's a good group of folks. You've traveled all over the world. You have shared your inner wisdom with so many people. You've got, on the internet, people can tune in every Wednesday and hear you.
I love that.
And which is so cool, you know. Where do you connect with that place where you decided, I really need to keep things simple and really find that as a place of launching all that your career has become?
Well, I decided about 2 years ago that more doesn't necessarily have to be more complicated. I love what I do. I'm very passionate about it. It is my joy. But then there's the third dimensional world of just managing all the logistics. And I realized if you try to manage it from your intellect, you go crazy. Because the intellect lives in the past and the future, as well as tries to manage the present. So it's like having a basket of eggs and you just trip and fall. But if you live in your spirit and you focus on the present by starting with just being in your breath and being in the now, time stretches. For one thing, and you can actually accomplish a lot in a very peaceful state of mind, even for the most ambitious or the person who's under tremendous demand.
You kind of move to a different perspective.
It's a different frequency. It's rather than managing life, you just learn to flow with it, and it's just easier. So it can be done, and the good news is it really isn't complicated.
Well, that is good news, because everything that we hear tells us it's complicated. But when you look at the world and all of humanity, yeah, that's complicated. But when we boil it down to, well, I'm one part of that humanity, there is something that I can do.
And how can I show up in humanity with clarity, peace of mind, an open heart, a grounded body, and the ability to be in creative choice instead of fearful reaction? And it really just, it starts with just a few simple practices. And the first is your breath. Most of our problems really can be rooted to holding our breath.
Intensity. I gotta sound
When the
this
minute
out.
you hold your breath, you go into anxiety. And then all of a sudden time implodes, and then it kind of amplifies, and it's like a vicious cycle.
And I mean, physiologically, biologically, when we're in that fight or flight mode, the body releases cortisol to give you the energy.
And then everybody gets aggressive, and everybody gets reactive, and then we become violent. And so the first step is breathe. And
Sounds so simple, but
it's so simple.
we don't do it.
It's a practice.
Yeah.
Because life kind of sucks your breath away. So you have to slow down enough to just and take the time. I had just met a wonderful man who gave me the advice on breathing. Before you do anything, breathe. Let a breath come before anything.
Well, we're going to take a breath, and we're going to be back with more Sonia Choquette right after these messages. Don't go away. Welcome back to Chicago. And today we're talking with New York Times best-selling author Sonia Choquette and Chicagoan about her new book. The answer is simple.
Love yourself.
Love yourself. It's so hard for folks to do that, isn't it, Sonia?
Well,
or at least intellectually it's hard for people
that's
to say.
because we have to distinguish between